Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history of Suwayda in Syria. You can see this region is very far south in the country, bordering Jordan there. And this region is not more commonly known, but I guess more infamously known as Jabal al-Jaruz. And if you know what that means, it means that the majority of the people living here are Druze. What does that mean? What is a Druze person? A Druze, or Druze, I should say, is a religion. It is a offset of Islam, which is closed. First of all, you cannot just join, you can't convert, you have to be born into it, and it's very mystical. As someone on the outside and everyone else on the outside, we don't know what that really means, because like I said, it's a closed religion. All of their inner workings and belief structures and things are not for outsiders, only for the people on the inside. So this region is primarily people of the Druze religion, or Druze peoples living here. I think I read that it's like 80% Druze here. It's so interesting. This region is part of what's known as the Hauran, which is made up of this very interesting, you can see all the texture here on my map. This is all very, very rocky, very dry, and that is because this region is very volcanic. It's just off the border of this governorate right here is the Safa volcano, which from Google Earth, it kind of looks like it's kaput. It hasn't erupted since the mid 1800s. It looks like it's burned out, to be honest, but who knows, right? You can really tell that the area around here has been greatly influenced by past volcanic activity. It's all very rocky and dry. We've got some desert regions over here, and then in the middle we have this really lush, fertile area, because volcanic soil is actually pretty fertile. So there's lots of farming and things that happen over here. So because of that, people have been living here for a very, very long time. The city of Suwayda was founded by the Nabateans, who are famous for building the city of Petra down here in Jordan. Really, really interesting ancient culture. They were ingenious in their architecture, and they were big-time traders. But that would soon change once the Romans moved into the Levant and they started moving this way. The town was taken over by the Romans. The area became a Roman province known as Arabia Petraea. And the town here was known as Dionysius Suwayda. I assume it was called Suwayda by the Nabateans. The Romans adopted that name, and it became a city devoted to the god Dionysus. I know I've said before in other videos I pronounced it Dionysus. Potato, I think, but nevertheless, Dionysus was the Roman god of wine and luxuriousness, parties, relaxing, the good life, things like that. It was the bro religion. It was the god you worshipped when you wanted to party and when you wanted to lay back and enjoy life. So that's what this town was all about. They grew a lot of grapes here for wine, which is Dionysus's favorite thing. So that's why it became a city devoted to him. They built a big temple there, and yeah, it really flourished in this region. Even when it became part of the Byzantine Empire, it was still a big fun town. A place to be if you love your wine and debauchery, I suppose. The Byzantine Empire would start to lose its influence over time, and by the 600s CE, it was pretty done at this point. So the Rashidun Caliphate moved in the year 629 and took it over, and most likely that's when Islam was introduced to the region. When it was conquered by the Mamluks, which is pretty much the peoples of the Ottoman Empire, the people who founded it, in 1516, it obviously retained that religion and that culture. But it wasn't until the 1900s when the Druze population started to become very, very important in its history. I imagine the Druze people were just kind of, there over time, slowly building their population, their congregation, putting their ways of life and their culture into the society here, until, like I said, today it's pretty much 80% Druze here. So in the 1920s, the Ottoman Empire has collapsed after World War I, and Britain and France decided to divvy up all the Ottoman lands in the Middle East amongst themselves. Syria fell under the control of France in what's known as the French Mandate. The Druze people living here did not like this, and they wanted independence. They declared that this was now the Jabal Druze state, and they weren't going to be ruled by France, and they rose up and fought, which obviously, the French weren't too fond of. The French really cracked down on resistance to their rule in many other places around the world at this time, up until about like the 1960s, a little bit after, but yeah, they weren't too fond of that. So the official Jabal Druze state has never officially been a thing, like on paper, recognized by international powers, things like that. But this area is still considered the Druze state in its own little way. Not much would change here until about 2018, which Syria had been going through it in the years before this. The Arab Spring was in 2011, encouraging Arab countries with corrupt governments to rise up and try to bring about change. The leader of Syria, Assad, wasn't going to allow that to happen, so any uprisings that happened, he would fight back angrily, which led to the Syrian civil war. It raged all around Syria, but not really here, because these people weren't too concerned with all of that. They were just minding their own business, There weren't any huge protests in the Arab Spring here. Fighting in the Syrian civil war didn't break out here. It was one of the few little peaceful corners of Syria until 2018. A side effect of the Syrian civil war is that it spread confusion and discord throughout the country, and certain extremist groups took advantage of that and would move in particular, the group which is now pretty much internationally just called IS, moved into Syria pretty hard. And IS, standing for Islamic State, their big MO is to create a brand new caliphate following strict Islamic rules, which means no outside religions, definitely no Christianity, and they definitely don't want any Druze around, right? So in 2018, they moved into the region here to start taking hostages, taking over towns. And they really took advantage of the landscape here, which is very barren, dry, rocky, empty, to hide out and make little camps without being seen so that they can plan attacks on the region here. So that is when the war entered Suwayda. Very sad. And it wasn't until 2020 when the people here were like, you know what? We don't like Assad either. Like, we've just been going about our business all this time since Syrian independence. But now the Assad regime is greatly affecting our lives. Huge protests broke out in 2020 and again in 2022 in a more extreme way, because that's when, like, in a major way, the troops came in from Damascus, from Assad, to fight back against protesters. And that's still very much the culture as of today, as I'm filming this in July 2023. It's still very unstable. There are still IS fighters out here in these rocks, this volcanic barren area. Still a threat to the people here. The people here don't want, they've never wanted to be governed by an outside force. They just want to do their own thing, and they're pushing back. And they're learning what happens when you push back against Assad, is that he pushes back twice as hard. So it's still very unstable. It really seemed that the Syrian civil war was kind of wrapping up in like 2019, 2020. And it seems like it's slowly, now that, pandemic times are over, all the outrage is coming back up to the surface against the Assad regime. So, it's still quite ongoing in this area, which is devastating, because let me show you how beautiful this region is. It's one of those places where there's just like, it's a lot of nothing. It's a lot of rocks and sand, but I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Look at this from above, okay? Look at this landscape. Let me zoom out a bit so you can see. Here's the volcano. We won't talk about it much because it's not part of Suwayda. It's just the borders are right here. So we're not going to talk about the cool volcano. But we are going to talk about the landscape that this volcano has created. Just kind of scarred the land over time. You can see it going into Jordan. And at the bottom of the mountains here, you have all of that years of buildup of volcanic ash and rocks, creating this little farmy area that you see here. The rest is pretty deserty, but this is the heartland. Let's take a look at the town first. Let's see if the city slide shows anything interesting. We're going to take a look at this museum after. Suwayda. Very old, looks like a little church here. There is a Christian population here. There have been Christians in Syria since Christianity's been a thing, so these look like very old ruins, don't they? I wonder if that's some old Roman Byzantine architecture, right? It's really pretty. Looks like a little canal there. There we go. It's a gorgeous picture. Big, I guess it's welcome to Suwayda sign. That's what it looks like. Very old ruins here. This looks kind of Roman, right? This definitely looks Roman. Little outdoor theater. This big old wall here. Just lots of really neat ruins still standing throughout this little modern city. Big old columns there still standing. Snowy day. So yeah, here's a big fortress. This isn't a nearby town, but it's a big, much later than the Romans, probably an Arab fortress. I'm in a town nearby, a memorial of some kind. And beautiful green farmland there. What was I saying? It's so important that we preserve these old ruins, because you can find Roman ruins all throughout the ancient Roman world, but a lot of them, like in northern Africa, the Middle East, are starting to really fall into disrepair. So it's really neat to see, even though they're ruins, right, that they're still really prominent. You could be like, oh, that was a theater, that was a canal, you can still point them out. So let's check out this museum and see some old Byzantine art. Very, very distinct style here. Everyone's faces in Byzantine art seem to look the same, and they use the same color schemes. So beautiful, and all the borders here. If I say border, all of the beautiful borders as well. Old statues, old stelae, I suppose. Looks like it's in I guess it looks like Greek, you know. Maybe it's Latin, I can't tell. Some of the old ruins, some cool Roman / this is definitely Byzantine. Just the eyes and the very distinct Hellenistic facial features. All Byzantine art kind of looks like this. It's very distinct. A little mural there. So yeah, amazing that all of these things are preserved, even outdoors. Isn't that neat? Gorgeous art. That's so neat. Those old columns we looked at. That looks like Neptune, right? Some kind of sea deity. Very, very cool museum. That would definitely, if I ever wound up in this place somehow, I think that would be my first stop, for sure. So, this is a place where, like I said, there's a whole lot of nothing. This is just rocks and sand. You can see dried up riverbeds, which I assume are gushing water during rainy seasons and snowy seasons, leaving little scars on the earth. There's not a lot here, but I want to show you just how gorgeous this landscape is. So let's pick just a random spot. Here's Busra, right? Look at this beautiful farmland. Look at this. It's coming closer. It's so pretty. It's like little patchworks. I spent like a good 5 minutes before, like earlier today, just going through the countryside, just admiring this landscape. Is just so unique. You don't see farmland like this really anywhere else. Look how beautiful. It's the red soil with these beautiful little walls around their properties. And it's the, like, where's the areas with like white stones in them? Let's find one. Up here maybe. The little white little spots there. It's so beautiful. It's like a quilt. Here we go. What if those are trees? And they look like it, don't they? Just all the little features. I think it is so beautiful. It looks like a mosaic. It looks like Byzantine art. It's the same color scheme, isn't it? Those like earth tones. Here we go. The little dots. It reminds me of like body art and like tribal peoples, you know, how they would like paint themselves with little spots and little marks. It looks like that. We're on the edge of a town here. It's so beautiful. It's so sad to know that there is so much turmoil and strife happening in this region, which is just so lovely. We're heading into town. As neat as towns are, this is one of the few times I just want to look at this countryside. Look at this. It's gorgeous. It looks like, this is more uniform up here. It reminds me of like pottery that was smashed and put back together, you know? Yeah, this is more modern. Ooh, how neat. All the beautiful colors of the land here. So cool. Look how organized it gets the more north you get. The more you head towards civilization and away from the desert. It turns into squares and rectangles. Whereas the old land is just every other kind of shape you can imagine. I think it's so beautiful. But I think that is all that I have to show you for today. Just gonna scroll through this landscape while I end the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. Next, we are going to head over to Libya, right? Yeah, I'm checking my calendar. Libya. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Look at this. Big old dam there. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good night.